I think this is a good transition into not player comps, but who Julio is, I'd say, related to over these stretches of time. Let's get the ultra elephant out of the room that I tweeted about earlier today that directly relates to this franchise, and that I don't know if you would have paraded it, but it would have been good for the franchise if you would have told everybody in 2022 that this would be the case this year, not mentioning what teams these players are on. In case you weren't aware, since the start of the 2023 season, Julio Rodriguez and Jared Kelenic are the exact same offensive player. They each have a 112 WRC+. These two players are portrayed completely different. Julio got the mega extension. Kelenic got salary dumped. Jared Kelenic gets called up in 2021, has one of the worst starts to a career you could ever have. He was horrendous to come up in the 2021 and 2022 seasons. Julio comes up in 2022, lights the world on fire, and you and I are sitting here, our jaws are on the floor. But after that all cleared up, after Jared's tough start and Julio's rocket ship rookie season, outside of Julio's better defense in center field, they're the same player. They're the same player. And remember, folks, they were right next to each other in the prospect rankings when they're in the Mariners system. They were right next to each other then, and here we are, July 1st, 2024, recording this podcast episode, and they are right smack dab next to each other again. Again. Like, this has happened to this extent, and the two portrayals of these players, and there's really not all that much difference.
Is there one person in the baseball world right now that would call Jared Kelenic a superstar? Even me, like one of his biggest fans on earth. You can't call that guy a superstar. He hasn't earned it. He's had a good season this year. It hasn't been a superstar season, and you just outlined it. Offensively, these two are the exact same players since the start of 2023. And if Jared Kelenic's not a superstar, which I don't think anybody's calling him, I don't know how in the world you call Julio a superstar. I just don't know how you do it. The offense doesn't speak for itself.
Even off the superstar point here for a second, I'm just thinking of how these players have been treated over that same stretch. Jared had one of the all-time fuck-ups that he could have in his career. When he kicked the water cooler, he broke his foot when he was turning it around, and he missed a big chunk of time, and it probably contributed costing his team a playoff spot. Contributed, because they could have used his continuity in that lineup and in the clubhouse, but he wasn't there. But a lot of the fans don't like Jared. Didn't, period. And some of that was because of that. Some of that is because when he came up, he was brash, he was outspoken, he's good-looking. Sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. And then you come up and you suck right away. Some people just write you off right there, and they look for any excuse to trash you. Any excuse. And maybe it created some ill will online, perhaps. I don't know. I do know that, or it was pretty evident publicly that there was ill will within the Mariners organization for Jared Kelenic in the sense that the two parties were not compatible, and was a reason why he got traded this offseason. That wasn't the case for Julio. He was more universally loved by the fan base and still is. He got the massive, potentially $470 million contract, which we'll talk about here in the segment eventually, after his rookie season. He gets, all the PR. He's got like a public relationship with that's famous. Like all of the stuff that comes in. Two completely different portrayals of two former Mariners top prospects in those 2021 prospect rankings. And here we sit, July 1st, and we're at the starting point again.
Yeah, if you want to add a little more context to that, Julio's got all the endorsement deals. He had a chance to be on the cover of MLB The Show they talked about. He's one of the faces of baseball at this point with how they market him. He was on The Shop with LeBron, for example. Again, I know this isn't exact. I know this is a little bit apples and oranges, but for anybody that's seen The Shop and the people LeBron has on that show, could you imagine if Jared Kelenic showed up on The Shop one day?
People will be wondering why he's there.
Yeah. And again, it's not a totally fair comparison, but again, like what you're outlining here is these two guys offensively have been the same player for the last year and a half, and they are not even remotely looked at in the same way. Part of that is the personality. Part of that is some things outside of baseball. Sure. Part of that could be how they were perceived in the clubhouse. We don't know exactly how Kelenic was perceived in the clubhouse. We do seem to know that Julio is pretty universally loved. But yeah, just by production, same player. They have offensively been the same player.
And isn't it a little heartbreaking? Because like if a lot of us feel that Kelenic should still be a Mariner and that he still should have gotten an opportunity. Especially you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know we thought there was going to be some changes to the roster this offseason, but I was pretty shocked when he got traded. I know not everybody was, but I was pretty shocked. I mean, we all kind of had our jaw on the floor that night when we got the passing notification that he was just gone, because it wasn't like there was rumblings about it. It just kind of happened. Yeah. And yeah, what person doesn't want Jared Kelenic on the Mariners right now? Because he'd be their best player. Right now, he's their best player.